Welcome to ILTV's Insider. I'm Aaron Porras, and our main topic tonight, Israelis are getting poorer. A recent report listing some 1.95 million Israelis as living under the poverty line in 2021, which is up from 1.87 million people in 2020. And with the way things are going, this number is only set to balloon. So Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich are now laying out their plan to bring down the exorbitantly high cost of living, including by reducing the price hikes of utilities and property taxes, especially for the economically disadvantaged, and by compensating some 300,000 elderly citizens in need.
או שאנחנו הולכים לממשלת שמאל, לדעתי ממשלה עם ניגודים פנימיים, שמים שם מלא טענה ימני, זה בניגוד גמור להבטחות שבנט נתן בבחירות, זה בניגוד גמור לרצון הציבור. הציבור בחר 65 מנדטים ימניים.
The question remains, though, then, are these new revisions the solution? Joining me to discuss is former Likud Knesset member Moshe Feiglin and economic consumer behavior expert, Assistant Professor Vili Abraham. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on the program today. Vili, I'm going to start with you. What are the biggest issues causing the cost of living in Israel today? What's driving the prices and the inflation rate up?
Well, there are several factors. If we look at the price of the electricity, which has increased, the price of fuel, which has jumped by around 7.4% over the past year. Car insurance has become much more expensive, up by over 17%. The money that we pay to travel abroad, almost 20%. So these things have brought up prices. And the reason is, first of all, we're still not out of the pandemic. The global warming is causing a lot of disruptions in the food supply, and also the war in Ukraine. All of these things are bringing up the prices in the supermarket up considerably. Of course, not only the food in the supermarket. And to that, you can also add the increasing price of fertilizers, which is also threatening yield crops in the coming years, which is also likely to increase prices in the next couple of years.
Moshe, is there anything that you want to add to that list? I'd like to create a baseline for the discussion.
Well, I'm sure the numbers are correct and the list is true, but these are the signs. This is not the sickness. You have to realize the reason for those prices to go up, and first, we have to know that the situation in Israel, which is not good, I agree, but it's much, much better. I'm sure that Professor Abraham will agree with me on that, much better than what's going on in Europe. And the reason is very simple. The reason is that during the last Likud government, when the leftist parties did everything they could to leave the gas in the water and not pumping it out, as they say. It is the gas of all of us, and they did everything they could in order to slow the process of taking it out. The right-wing government insists on coming up with a deal with the Tshuva and Nobel Energy and others. And today, Israel export gas while Europe is freezing to death, basically. So at least that problem we don't have, and because of that, our electricity prices, even though they went up, are much lower than in the other side of the world. And as we know, prices of electricity pulls with them prices of everything else. The reason I believe the basic problem that the Israeli economy still have, the most important problem, is the fact that 93% of all the building land, land that's supposed to be, that we can build on, belongs to the country, belongs to the state. This is something unheard of in any free state. I'll give you a number that is unbelievable. When I heard it, I almost fell. About more than 20% of the income of the state of Israel comes from new apartments, which means those who don't have houses, don't have apartments, those young couples, those who didn't have the money until today, and taking mortgages and basically put themselves in life sentence, paying them through all their life. Okay, they paying 20% of the Israeli income altogether. It's a system that starts with the fact that the land belongs to the state instead of the people, and end with poverty, because the biggest taxation, it's a
Right.
very smart taxation, but the biggest taxation is not on those who have the biggest income, but just the opposite.
So I want to talk now about some of the main points of the plan, and we're going to come back to housing in just a moment. But some of the points include freezing the increase on property taxes for 1 year, canceling the last increase on the prices of fuel, a decrease of about 10 agorot, or pennies on the dollar per liter, reducing the prices of power and water by 70%, assuming that certain plans follow through, and that's a number quoted by the government, and a complete cancellation of electricity price hikes for some 100,000 small and medium businesses, although it's unclear what criteria those businesses need to qualify for this benefit. And the estimated savings per family, according to this, has been estimated to just be about $10 per month. So it's not exactly saving anyone from falling below the poverty line. Vili, do you see solutions that need to be on this list that aren't?
Well, I agree with Moshe that we have a serious problem with housing. There's just not enough supply. We have a shortage of tens of thousands of apartments, and that's why prices are high. And of course, it accounts for a huge income for the government. If you look at the prices of rent, it has increased by over 6% over the last year. However, in the last 2 months, there is a decrease in the price of new homes, and this is due to the increase of the basic rate. Interest rate. However, it's not enough. Families, if you look at young families, if they just have to save for the down payment, to buy an apartment, they have to work, I don't know, probably 8 years, not eat and not live, live with their parents in order to save money. And once they have enough money to put, for the down payment, they will have to pay mortgage for 25 or 30 years. So the situation is really dire. Although it's a global phenomenon, if you look at the Y generation and the Z generation in the United States and in Europe, is also in a serious trouble regarding the ability to buy apartments. But in Israel, it's much, much worse, and it's just becoming worse by the day.
So it sounds to me. Well, it sounds to me that especially based off of what you've both said now, that if one of the main issues, for example, is the housing crisis, and the government owns most of the land, and the government is at the same time earning about 20% of its annual income from leasing out that land or from the payments made on the land that's being sold, it doesn't sound like the government really has any interest in releasing more land and bringing down that cost. Am I wrong? Am I cynical?
Exactly. Not only that, that the government don't really have any interest on solving a real solution for that problem. It's even worse than that. Why? I'll ask you a simple question. How many people you need to make a decision that is not simple at all, that basically transfer the ownership on the land from the state to the people? You need 120 Knesset members, another, let's say, 200 people around the system that needs to cooperate. So you need about, let's say, 300 people. You need the cooperation of about 300 people to make that fundamental decision that will change life of the Israeli for good and for the better, of course.
Well, so I'm going to ask. So here's a political question for you, Moshe.
Why doesn't happen? Why doesn't happen? Why no one is talking about it at all? It's very simple. because from those 300 people, there's a large percentage of people who have more than one apartment. And when you make that decision, the prices of housing will go much lower, and their assets will be worth less.
So,
Very simple.
Another political side question then in the same vein. Opposition MK Merav Michaeli says that this is a smokescreen for the seizure of power and the destruction of the legal system being advanced. It seems, based again on what's being said here today, that it's a smokescreen for much more than that. That again, it's special interests, and that this is unlikely, that the real issues affecting the cost of living are unlikely to come down based on anything that's been presented in this or any other plan in the near future. Is that a correct assessment?
Fortunately, I agree.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
it's not a question. It's not a question. Look, the right-wing politics, and we have to give all the credit to Netanyahu as a finance minister 20 years ago or more. Okay, and as I said with the gas, now it definitely contribute to the Israeli economy dramatically. And instead of being a state of economy of oranges and diamonds, we become a very, very, very serious economy and good economy, good state economy wise. But the plan that we heard of right now, and I don't think they're trying to present to say it's not, it's just bandages. The real source of the problem is the crisis of housing.
Really?
Yeah, well, I have to say that I to a certain point, I disagree with Moshe, because I think that if the government increases the supply, loosens red tape, and more families are able to buy apartments, you know, economics 101, as supply increases, so do the prices decrease. So I think that if the government allows, you know, construction companies to build buildings and population, as well as around that have no buildings built there. If you look at the Negev, for example, so if you allow more builders to build buildings and apartments, this will increase the supply, and as a result, it will increase the income that the government wants so much. So I think that if there is increase in supply, the government can still have, you know, the income that it needs so much, or wants so much from the housing. But on the other hand, it will make more apartments available and will reduce the price. It's unbelievable. You know, the price we pay for an apartment in Israel is just unbelievably, it's prohibitively expensive. In other parts of the world, you'd be able to buy a luxurious villa with the sum of money that you can buy an apartment in the center of the country, or even in the periphery. Even in Beersheba today, apartments are close to 1.5 or even 2 million shekels.
So,
Professor Avraham, you know that over 50% of every apartment in Israel today is actually taxation. So you can, and another point is that over 50% of every apartment is actually the price of the land. And another fact is that in some places, the land price increased about 1,000% for the builders just in the last 2 years. The bottom line is that the solution is free market. You cannot go around it. The solution is free market. You need to have competition at the land housing. You need people. You need to have a free market of land. You need people to sell and buy land from each other. That will reduce the price of the land to the real market price of it. Of course, in addition to that, you need to let the builders get their permit to start building much easier and faster in an automatic way. Right. It's, for example, the time it takes you in New York in Manhattan to get a permit to build is shorter than in Beersheba, okay, that you just mentioned. So when you do these both sides, both things, you reduce the price maybe by 40-50%. And do not forget that around the building system, there are thousands of other industries that connect to the builders, and you create prosperity and work, and
well,
this is the core. This is the core problem.
All right. Well, I want to address some of the other parts of this economic plan as well. Now, additional steps include a compensation package for some 300,000 elderly people in need. In addition, Smotrich and Netanyahu promised further initiatives in the future, including, of course, free childhood health education, which was a part of their campaigns in the political campaigns, measures to address the housing crisis, which were left unclear, and reforms on competition. Where is the government getting money for this? Really?
Who are you referring to?
Really?
You want me to answer?
Yeah, well, it comes from both the. Yeah. Okay. So I'm sure Moshe has a lot to say about this from the political perspective, but in general, it's from direct and indirect taxation. We saw increase in taxes in different spheres. We also saw the taxes that were imposed on plastic, and increase in different taxations. We're paying much more than we did in if you look at government fees, etc. And it also comes a huge sum of the government income comes also from taxing cars, which are being imported, and of course the accessories around these cars, and also licensing, etc. So this comes from in both direct and indirect taxation. And I'm afraid that if now they will have some easing of tax easing of some restrictions, or providing some populations with greater sums of money, this will mean that they will have to get this from somewhere else, and it's probably will be increasing taxes, whether direct or indirect.
So it's not really going to lower the cost of living for Israelis if in the end we're going to have to pay for all of these new programs.
Well, there's nothing new about it. The government don't get its money from the stars. When the government trying to be good to the people and give them money, like through the pandemic or whatever it was, it came from the people themselves, or it was the loans that the people themselves will have to pay one day. Governments don't have money; they take money from one citizen to give to the other, and unfortunately, a huge chunk or percentage of that income of the government come from where? From those who don't have houses. And Professor Abraham is right, also from those who dare to buy a car in Israel. These two things, the roof on top of your head and your ability to move from one place to the other, so basically your freedom, these are the two things you need to be a free man, land and the ability to move, are the most taxed things in Israel. And that is very bad. That is very bad, because a very small percentage of the income from taxing the cars and the gas, the below as they call it, goes back to building new roads, for example, and as I said, basically what we need to have is a much more free economy. Free market.
Again, though, something that I'm not hearing, and maybe you can correct me on this, Moshe, is anybody in the government, this one or those before them, talking about reducing government spending? Because that's one thing that I haven't heard anybody say.
I agree 100%. There's too many ministers in a government. This one, the previous one, it become totally ridiculous, creating new ministers every minute. We used to have a law that you cannot have more than 18 ministers. At the time, the left government said that the price for peace or something like that. Yes, we need a smaller government. We need a much smaller bureaucracy and much more independent and free market to have a real prosperity that the people will feel in their pockets.
Vili, have you ever seen a plan, a successful financial plan that didn't include reducing spending and only, these really more expenditures, it seems, and really the only thing that I could see that could help is the housing, is freeing up some of the housing market and increasing competition. But I'm not seeing something successful. Do you?
Well, there are two options, really. It's either that the government increases taxation or, introduces new taxes, or it's either or they have budget cuts from different ministries. So it means that the citizens of the country will be affected one way or another, whether through their pockets or through the services that they will get from the government. And I have to say something further to what Moshe has mentioned, and this takes us to another problem. Middle class in Israel, which is really struggling. If you look at low income families, they don't pay income tax, but they're really weak populations. And if you look at the corporate income tax, because they have a lot of tax breaks. So it means that every increase in taxation really falls on the shoulders of the middle class in Israel, which is really struggling not only socially, but also sees jobs. They have to take loans in order to finish the month, because they don't have enough money, which are just increasing by the month.
All right, well, it's going to be very interesting to see how the Israeli citizenry puts up with these increasing expenses. I want to thank you both again, Moshe Feiglin and Vili Abraham. Thank you both so much for joining us today and sharing your insights. It's been a pleasure. And of course, everybody at home, thank you for watching. I'm Aaron Porras, and this was ILTV's Insider. Please tune in next time for more on everything Israel, and let us know in the comments online if there's a topic that you'd like us to cover next. And finally, for more of the latest updates from Israel, make sure to subscribe to our newsletter at iltv.tv and check out our new website. Thank you so much. Be well, and we'll see you soon.